Welcome to the Power Lunch on LinkedIn Live. I'm Rhett Power. This week I am broadcasting live from Brasilia in Brazil. That's the capital, by the way. It's in the middle of the country. Great little city. Enjoy being here. This has been a lot of fun. I do this program every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, no matter where I am in the world. We try to do it at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time on LinkedIn's new live platform. The point of the show, as you know, is to talk to thought leaders, best-selling authors, CEOs, corporate leaders about their secrets to success and the habits that they have that can all make us better. The fun part about this show, guys, is that it is interactive. So in order for that to happen, you have to ask questions. So please do ask questions. Alden is a wealth of knowledge. He's our guest today. And I know that he will certainly want to interact with you on social media. So we can do it live. You can ask your questions live, or we can get to them after the program. And we are also simulcasting on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube with the help of Social Live and their platform. If you like the program, give it a like or share. Spread the word that so others can benefit from what we are talking about today. My promise to you is always to bring you the best people who are doing really good work. Today is no exception. I've got Alden Mills. He's a fellow Inc. 500 CEO. And I know that we'll maybe talk about that a little bit today. He's built a company into 90 million, his company into a $90 million company in 3 years. He's a keynote speaker, and he's author of Be Unstoppable and his new book, Unstoppable Teams. Alden, thank you for joining me today.
Hey, it's great to be here.
Good.
I love that you're in Brazil, Rhett. I think that's so cool.
Well, I love it. It's a great place. The weather is always 80 degrees, and you can't beat it. All like it is in California. It's you can't beat the weather. I wanted to ask you. Your motto is to lead is to serve, and to serve is to care. What do you mean by that?
If you really break down what leadership is all about, I look at leading, that leaders do three things. Mm-hmm. Number one, they get people to believe in themselves.
Right.
Number two, they teach people something. Mm-hmm. And number three, they push them beyond what they originally thought they were capable of doing.
Right.
And in all of those, leadership in that level has to connect emotionally.
Yeah.
Abraham Lincoln once said, he said many different things, but he'd say, if you want to win a person to your cause, you must first reach their heart, the great high road to their reason. Leading is about caring. When people start to appreciate, and I'm going to throw one other quotation in here, Teddy Roosevelt, when he said, nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. When people start to appreciate how much you truly care, they will start to dare. But they need to know that you've got their back. And so when I talk about leadership is about serving. To me, the term servant leader is redundant. It is one and the same. True leadership is about serving. Right. And when you serve, and really serve with passion, it's about caring.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Is that really then what makes some leaders successful and others not? Is that one of the key things that you see when you work with people who need help? Is that a common place that leaders fail?
I think it's absolutely the single biggest criteria why some people will hop from one organization to the next, while others will follow people to the ends of the earth, because they know that other person that they're following to the end of the earth always has their best interest, always has their back. Now, I want to be very specific about this. You don't have to be Mr. Charismatic, Mrs. Extrovert to be the type of care-based leader I'm referring to in Unstoppable Teams. You do have to show that you care. And there's lots of little ways to show you can care. And getting people to appreciate that is what builds a culture that will stand the test of time. I often talk to people and ask them, hey, so what's a brand? In its simplest form, it's a promise, right? But a brand is really nothing more than a reflection of the culture of that organization. The brand is the external to the internal reflection of the culture. And what's the culture a reflection of? The teams inside there that are taking the action.
Right.
And then what's the reflection of the team? The leaders. Right? Those are the three bridges: brand to culture, culture to team, and then team to the leader.
Right. That makes sense. In the book, Unstoppable Teams, I really love the sort of framework you laid out with CARE. Can you explain that? Because I know you're just getting ready to hit on it a little bit, I think.
Yes.
Because that makes, it really hit home to me. It really, for me, sort of synthesized or pulled it all together, what leadership is and how to do it.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. And from your background, with especially your work that you started off in the Peace Corps, I got to believe that you've seen exactly the same thing, whether you were helping build up a village or helping build up a company. It's the same thing. If people are involved, then there's care, right? And the framework I refer to is called the CARE loop. And it's very important that people understand it's a loop, right? This is not a destination. It's not like, oh, I proved to them enough, we're good.
Right.
Don't worry, I've made that mistake. I've made that mistake with finding success, thinking, oh, I'm done, I'm succeeded. And then forgetting that this group called competitors out there, they're not done. They keep coming, right?
Right.
It's the same thing with CARE. Like it's a loop. And what I did was, being a former military guy, I like to keep it simple, stupid, the KISS principle.
Right.
I have a problem remembering things, so I like acronyms, and I turned CARE into an acronym. And the loop starts very simply with connect, achieve, respect, empower. And it continues. You can enter at any given piece of the loop. But the key pieces of connect and why we create a connection in the first place is to build trust.
Right.
For achieving something, teams come together for a reason, right? If they're not coming together for a reason, that's not a team, that's a group or a club. To achieve is to set direction, and then respect. You can have those two, and you can have very nice directed groups. But the real transition occurs when you start to build mutual respect. Because when mutual respect occurs, people feel willing to contribute their ideas. And when they start to feel like you're listening, you may not accept them, but they're willing without retribution to say, hey, I think this, maybe we should try that. What if we did that? Then we start to go transition from a group to a team. And mutual respect then goes to the final piece, which is empowering. Empowering is building owners. And when owners are built, guess what happens? They become their own team leaders, and then they go out and build connections and set direction and build a contribution. And the cycle continues, like expanding a slinky, right?
Right. But that's how you blow it up in a business, right? You empower your team like that. If they have that trust and that feeling that you've got their back no matter what, mistakes or successes, no matter what, then you can do anything.
Yeah. And so let's talk about that point.
Okay.
Your background, my background, I guarantee you, and I'm going to put words in your mouth, this is always a dangerous thing. Every great thing you've succeeded at involved a team.
Oh, no doubt.
Every great thing, right? They'll be like, well, Alden, you invented the perfect push-up. I'm like, I drew out something on a napkin. There are 25 people there that help bring this product and help us ship millions of units.
Yeah.
The book, there's no way I wrote my book in a vacuum. No. I had a manager, an assistant, an editor, the editor of the publishing house constantly whispering in me, sometimes yelling at me, redo it this way. Like Every single thing. The family, the world's greatest and most important team.
Right.
So, people are like, well, I don't really need a team. I'm just going to tell people what to do. I'm like, okay, that's the first problem. It's not about telling. It's about teaching. Stop what they're doing there. Very few moments. If the bullets start flying, tell them to go right or left. Okay. But then you're going to figure out really quickly you're going to need some help.
Right. What's the difference between motivation and inspiration in your opinion, and how do you how do you get your team, because I think you've got to do both, right? You've got to inspire,
Mm-hmm.
but you've also got to motivate. How do you do that as a leader? Because they're different.
So the quickest, the simplest way I can say it without looking at a dictionary definition is a motivation is a moment. It's a moment when, I don't know if I can do this. Hey, come on. Forget about that last thing. We learned from that failure. Let's move forward and help them at that moment, right?
Right.
Inspiration, the way I view it, is you're helping them emotionally connect with a purpose.
It's a fire within, right?
It's fire within. It becomes that perpetual cycle of, I'm going to connect a passion and a purpose with you. I'm going to help you stoke your fire so you can go on and continue to crush it out there.
Mm-hmm. What do you see in you've been doing this a long time. What lesson, or I'll ask this question. What lessons in that we can apply in business did you learn on the SEAL teams, on the Navy SEAL team? What lessons did you learn that you apply today in your business?
First, I'll give you the simplest answer. Never give up. Okay. That's the simplest one.
Is that, let me ask you, I want to interrupt. I want you to come back to that. But is that an innate trait, you think, or is that something where does that perseverance come from? Because to me, it seems like that's something that's either there or not there. Do you believe that, or what do you think?
I don't.
Okay.
No, and I can remember a very specific moment in my life. I'm 12 years old. I'm in the doctor's office in the big city of Worcester, Massachusetts. I grew up in a small mill town in central Mass, and I'd had pneumonia multiple times. They bring me to this doctor. The doctor does all these tests, and I'm going to really abbreviate the story. And he tells my mom, I see the problem with this child. He is born with a small set of lungs, shows a chart, and then flips the chart and says, and he has asthma. He needs to learn the game of chess and be a less active child. And fast forward, mom sends me to the lobby. I'm sitting there having a pity party for myself. She comes out and she's like, scowls at me. What's wrong with you? I'm like, Mom, chess? I'm terrible at checkers. How am I going to learn chess? What was I doing at that moment? I had already accepted the doctor's fate. I had already started to think, oh my God, I'm terrible at checkers. How am I going to play chess? Like, this is a very complicated game. Right. And it was my mom who started digging her fingernails into my arm at that moment and said, now you listen to me. Nobody defines your limits. Nobody but you. It's up to you. You have to make that decision. Now, I'll get you the medicine, but you decide what you can or can't do. And I remember I had already accepted it. Mm-hmm. Right. I wasn't that kid at 12 years old that had Navy SEAL pictures on the wall and said, this is where I'm going. It wasn't anything like that. Now, I did wear a mask, fin, and snorkels to watch Flipper, the TV show. Cool. That's normal. But that moment, right? That was the moment. And of course, I didn't get it that day. But after a couple of years, my parents whispering in my ear, keep trying. Go do another one, go try another sport, go try another one. And, and I found a sport I liked, and I was good sitting down, going backwards for long periods of time in a rowing boat. And rowing, that took me to the Naval Academy, which I had never thought of going to. Right. The Naval Academy ended up taking me to SEAL team. And it was that snowball effect, right? And I often talk to people about, okay, well, how do I become unstoppable? I don't have the unstoppable gene. I'm like, oh, did you just do 23andMe and they have a new line item that says you have the unstoppable gene?
Right.
No. Is there any DNA testing that says you have success in you and the other person doesn't? No, not at all. So at the end of the day, I do this really simple drill called an outcome account. And all the outcome account does is get you to not just visualize the outcome, but get you to feel it. Because once you connect here with here, the head and the heart, in particular the heart, remember Abraham Lincoln, all right, our high road to our reason, then you'll start to appreciate how important it is to work for that thing. And the outcome account, by the way, is very simple. You draw a large T, it's in the book, and they put a positive on one side and negative on the other, and you write down these three things. What is the outcome if we succeed? The positive, if we succeed at this. Number two, who does it impact should we succeed? And number three, how does that make me feel? And how does it make them feel? The people associated with us if we succeed. And then do the same drill on the negative side. If we don't succeed, what happens? If we don't succeed, who does it impact? And if we don't succeed, how does it make them feel? And by the way, usually the people that you write down, they're the ones you care about the most.
Right.
How does it make you feel?
Right.
Notice there's a care component in there, right? And then what happens really builds a strong linkage of a purpose of why you're trying to do it. You know, in my first book, I had a whole chapter about understand your why. And not just know your why, but understand what it means to you. How does that feel to you? Should you go through the rest of your life and live with all these different regrets, right? That's what I don't want people to have. Don't have these regrets.
Yeah, no, I spend a lot of time on the why, and is there something that you've done? I mean, for me, I use my personal mission statement as that's really what focuses me and drives me. How do you do that? I mean, how do you find that why? How do you define it? What is that? Is there an exercise that you have or you've done, or is it just you've always known it?
I always go through goal setting.
Okay.
I look 20 years out. I didn't used to look 20 years out. There was a moment in my life where I was just looking at the next step, like when you go through Hell Week or when you're going through dealing with a very angry bank, you're looking at one day at a time.
Right.
Right.
Sometimes as an entrepreneur, that's what you're. Yes.
Yeah. Really. But imagine for a moment, and I don't know where it really happens, but somewhere along our human development, from going from child to young adult to adult, we stop dreaming, and we get these blinders put on and saying, okay, welcome to the world. You go to work, you work for 40 years, you retire, happy life, goodbye. Right? And here it is, we're in the prime of our lives. I'm 50. And I'm supposed to be inside a building for 40 to 60 hours a week when my body is actually slowing down every single day. When am I going to go climb a mountain? Or when am I going to sail an ocean? Or when am I going to ski to a polar cap? Like, I got to do it now. You got to do it now, right? This is the prime. So what happens if we totally flip that paradigm on its end and say, hey, well, wait a minute, what's the kind of life I want to have? And more importantly, because I'm a father, what kind of example do I want to set for my kids? And what kind of example do I want to be when I'm a grandfather and when I'm sitting on that proverbial porch at 85, 90 years of age saying, right, don't do this, don't do what your grandfather did and give up on his dreams. I want you to go dream, right? How many times do you hear people talk like that?
All the time.
Yeah. I don't want that. And I got to tell you, the first time that really came up for me was when I was thinking of quitting going through Hell Week in Navy SEAL training.
Which has to be every minute of every day.
It was, but I mean, the first couple of nights, you don't really think. By the way, Hell Week is this time period, goes from Sunday to Friday. They keep you up the whole time. They give you about 3.5 hours of sleep. And I was the class leader. I was the only officer, and my class had dwindled. Started at 122, and it went all the way down to 18 by Wednesday night. And the instructors came up to me, and they would whisper in my ear, "Sir, this is not going well for you. You really can't lead. Look at your class. It's down to 17 people. I think we're just going to shut this class down and we'll fuse it with another class. But in the meantime, come on, you're embarrassing yourself. Just go ring the bell." Right? They never yelled at me. They just whispered, and they whispered. And I got to tell you, you've been up for 72 hours straight, and you're looking at your class, and you're like, maybe they're right. Oh my God. And it was a little quiet voice inside saying, "Hey, whoa, wait a second. You're not as bad as you think you are. And by the way, if you do quit, what are you going to tell your kids? What are you going to tell your parents? How's it going to feel when you go back to that little town and those people who said, you'll never become a Navy SEAL, and they'll say to you, I told you so, and you'll have to live with that for the rest of your life."
Yeah.
That I call an outcome movie. And all the time. And in the beginning, I encourage people to come up with just a little dream. Let's try something little. Like I'll use the metaphor of climbing a mountain. Well, I've never climbed a mountain before, and I live in the Northeast. I want to climb a 3,000-foot peak. Okay, let's get on the Stairmaster. Come out. Oh, look. If you typed in 60 seconds, you could get 5 different climbing workouts to get ready to climb 3,000-foot mountain. You climb the 3,000-foot mountain. What happens? Maybe I want to climb the tallest one in the Northeast. That's 4,000 feet. I'm feeling pretty good. I want to go to 10,000. I want to go to 12, right? Mm-hmm. And one success begets another. And then what will happen is, you know what? I climbed the mountain. Maybe I want to do a triathlon. Maybe I want to do a skiing adventure, right? And then all of a sudden, the confidence starts to grow. You know what? Maybe I really want to start a business. And then what happens? They just get free to do more and more things. And then they start.
You learn not to limit yourself. You learn that dream can be reality if you work towards it.
Yeah. I mean, if you started off coming out of South Carolina and you knew where you are today, would you have ever thought you would have been Inc. 500 CEO, created all these great products, been up for all these different awards, created 2 books, gone to the Peace Corps? Your wife's going to be potentially an ambassador. I mean, no, you wouldn't, right? You'd be like, no, I'm just going to try this one thing. And then what happens? You just build on each one of those successes.
That's right. That's right. No, it's certainly that's certainly true, and it gives you the confidence to do those things and take those risks, and the confidence that it does build inside. I remember first starting a business, and you've probably experienced the same thing. The first day we were in the business, we flooded the guy next to us. We had these big 500-gallon tanks, and we didn't know what we were doing. We opened a valve somewhere and it flooded. And this is a guy who carried, a handgun on his hip and a shotgun in the back of the car. And, he ran an illegal poker game at night and ran, I think, probably human traffic people. He was not somebody to toy with. And, right. I was amazed at what a case of Budweiser would accomplish in an apology.
Yeah.
But
building a relationship.
Yeah. That was quick thinking. But my point was that was really stressful. And a lot of the failures that we had initially were very stressful, but you get confidence. Once you work your way through these problems and you get over some of them, when they come back up again, it's like, oh, okay, I know what to do. I know how to solve that. Right. And the confidence that you build, as you were talking about, the confidence that you build as you go through that and you mature and you get these experiences, the idea that you can't do anything. I mean, I don't limit myself that way anymore.
Yeah. And that confidence begets more, right? And so then every time your dreams that you conjure up, they get a little more crazy. And you're like, whoa, what if I were to do that? Right?
That's right.
And that to me is living. That to me is like, okay, come on, let's keep pushing that envelope out there. And what a great thing to show your children, exactly what you're doing in Brasilia, right?
Right.
And I mean, the kids are going to grow up with languages and cultural experiences and skills that you could never even dream of from your small town.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. What do you think, what actions do we need to take every day to be unstoppable?
The very first.
Are there habits that you have that?
Yes, there are habits, and I end up falling off the train every once in a while because I'll be the first to admit I'm human. That means I'm not perfect, right? I really want people to understand, like, oh, it's easy for that guy to talk about it. He was a former Navy SEAL. I was a struggle. It was a struggle for me every single day. It was not, right? I was the kid that scored against my team in lacrosse, basketball, soccer, and hockey, 2 of which I was goalie in, and that didn't help matters much. But the point is, the things when I first think of is I don't let the whiner in. Now, let me explain that. We had this character in first phase of SEAL training. He talked with a deep Southern accent, and he'd say, it ain't complicated. It's just hard to make it through SEAL training. And you have to decide how much you're willing to pay. And then he'd go on and say, you know what my job is? My job is to create a conversation between here and here. A conversation that's going to lead you to decide if you're going to quit or you're going to graduate. And every day I confront the whiner, right? The whiner right here. What's the whiner doing? The whiner's looking behind me. Maybe the whiner's looking at all the things other people are whining about, and I accept those whining limitations myself. Mm-hmm. And they can also be called the demons of doubt, right? The biggest challenges in life are not the games you play against other people. They're the games you play against yourself. Oh, the places we'll go, Dr. Seuss, right?
Love it.
It's the demon of doubt. So every morning, and there are mornings where I have a harder time beating back the demons than other days. And the first thing that I really try to do most of the time is to do some type of physical activity, because they have proven that the positive endorphins, the chemicals that your brain spits out, if you can just get 20 minutes at 80 to 85% of your max heart rate, that really helps with beating the demons back. I don't get it every day. Sometimes I'm too much on the road, so I'll do some push-ups or I'll go for a long walk. But I always try and have a moment to myself to think about, what do I want to get done with this day? And if I were to tell you, like, hey, this is my last day, how would I treat this day? Like, okay, not every single day I'm going to be doing skydiving or something wacky like that, but how do I use this day as a gift? How do I say, what's the one thing I can get accomplished towards a bigger goal that I'm trying to do? Right. That, to me, is the most important thing. Starting off that day with keeping the whiner in check and listening to the whisperer that I call down here, the one that says, you can do it, keep trying, get up, let's get going. And I like to sleep, by the way. So, that first thing I do is got to get out of bed. And then after that, once that ball starts rolling of leading that conversation. The next thing is I always think of my goals, and I always try and do something daily. In my first book, I call this planning in 3D, and the 3D is a double meaning. And the first part of this is define it, divide it, do it daily.
Right.
And you'd be surprised how quickly you can write a book if you just try and write 250 to 500 words.
Every day.
Just every day.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So that's how I kickstart things. Oh, and a couple of cups of coffee too.
Fair enough. Are there things that you learned in the SEALs that you apply? I'm gonna get back to that question that I interrupted you on earlier. Things that you learned in the SEALs on the SEAL team that have helped you in business, aside from the perseverance and the other things. Are there some lessons that you've sort of learned there that you've used in business every day?
Yes.
Managing your teams, whatever.
The next one would be focus. And I can't tell you how many times in SEAL team they try and shift your focus in training. They try and shift your focus to feeling as miserable as possible. And they do this one drill where they put you in cold water. It's called surf torture. They do it all the time. And surf torture during the middle of the day where you're just sitting out in cold Pacific Ocean, linked arms, sitting in there and the waves are pounding on you. It's pretty easy to deal with that surf torture because you can look up and see the sun, right? So yeah, you're cold, but in between a wave, you can, there's a little sun on my face. I feel warmth, right? And your focus goes to your cheeks and like, oh yeah, I felt, boom, wave comes again. Oh, whew, look back at the sun. But when they surf torture you at night, that's a different deal because you can't see the sun anymore. So you have a choice. Do you want to think about how cold you feel right now, or do you want to think of a warm place and what that warm place will feel like, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what you end up finding out is that focus funnels your energy into an action.
Okay.
It ain't complicated. It's just hard, right? And so that focus is going to funnel your energy to, I'm too cold. I'm getting hypothermic. I have to leave.
Right.
And more often than not, and that instructor, by the way, they'll come out with a doctor and say, hey, doc, how cold is it out there? How long can they be in there before they get hypothermic? Oh, you mean they're hypothermic right now? Oh my gosh. Hey, what are the symptoms of hypothermia, right? They're taking you down a funnel to try and focus your energy on feeling super cold. Now, how does that parallel to building a business? If I keep my focus on every single thing that isn't going correctly, if you were to focus on, oh my God, I flooded my next door neighbor and he has guns and he's going to kill me. I don't know what I'm doing. I give up. I'm a loser. I'm an idiot. I'm out. Right? That's the whiner. Whiner could say that. What are you thinking? You could have gotten yourself killed. You don't know what you're doing. You have no right doing that. Right? But if you're like, hey, wait a minute. Okay. I can't turn valve A to valve B before I do valve C to valve D. Check. Learn that. Won't happen again. We can even put a little piece of tape on there. Not happening. Cool. Learn something new today. Right. Go focus in the right way. Focusing towards the sun, not towards quitting. And that, again, it's a simple concept, but it's really critical, especially as an entrepreneur who's, if I've been bumbling along with my little coffee shop, it'll never mean anything. I'm like, well, how did Starbucks start? How did Pete start? How did Caribou Coffee start? I mean, how did Phil start? With one coffee shop.
That's it.
They decided to dream bigger. And, let's replicate this and let's make this better and let's own our niche.
They figured it out. They figured it out.
Yeah, so I can go on and on, but I would say leading the conversation, focus, and then without question, team building. It's all about the team. It is all about understanding that I am not great at everything. I'm actually only probably good at one or two things. Mm-hmm. And then I really need to find those other people that are excellent where I'm weak, which means I got to come to grips with myself that I'm not as good as I think I am. Right. And when I accept that humility and honor other people's superpowers, you'll be surprised how quickly you'll build a culture where you're unstoppable.
What's the best advice you ever got?
Best advice I ever received.
Was it from your mom? Never give up, never stop, never let up?
Yeah, so I could put it in kind of 3 categories.
Okay.
My mom digging her fingernails in, right?
Mm-hmm.
No one defines what you can or can't do. Essentially, it's up to you, right?
Right.
Commanding officer of my first SEAL team. He said 2 things. He brings me in and he says, do you know what leaders do? You know what your job is? And this is right before I'm deploying for my first set of missions. I'm like, oh, take care of your troops, sir. And he's like, yeah, that's partly it. Yeah, but the other part is you got to make a decision, okay? Your country is paying you to make a decision. They are not paying you to sit. You sit, you die. Do you understand that? If you go right and it's the wrong decision, make another decision. Go another way, but don't sit. If you sit, you die. Do you understand? You have to keep moving. That's the key here when you're out in the field. And that's the best way to take care of your troops. Now, part 2 of that, and I love this guy, he was part philosopher, and he was really talking about the kind of bravado of special operations in general. This isn't unique to SEAL team, by the way, is only ever be as tough as the situation dictates. So what does that mean?
I love that, actually.
Walk into a bar, going, look at me, look how tough I am, don't mess with me. Or do you walk in and match to the situation at hand? In anything you look at, that rule applies, right?
Right.
Does anybody need to walk in the room and say, look at me, I'm the CEO, you do what I tell you to do? No. Walk in the room and tell me your story. I want to hear about you. Right? That's a mind shift. That's really important.
That's a level of emotional intelligence, isn't it? I mean, that you have to have.
It's a level of humility, right? Mm-hmm. And I think everybody has different levels of emotional intelligence. And I agree with you. That next piece, when we talked about walking in the room and saying, hey, I want to learn more about you, that definitely is emotional intelligence.
Or that's understanding and reading the room, is what I was thinking. You understand. Right.
Again, I think you can learn some of that. I'm not Mr. EI expert, but I will say the more you can appreciate, walk quietly, and not show off your big stick of toughness, the better off it is, because you're more approachable, right? And more people will be willing to say, hey, you know what? I might be able to work with that guy.
Well, it comes back to what you were saying earlier, care. If people know that you genuinely care, whether you don't know somebody or you do know somebody really well, they can tell pretty quick if you truly care about what they're saying. I mean, you and I can have a conversation face to face, and you can probably instantly read whether I'm engaged or present in that conversation, or I'm thinking about seeing that next person that walks in the door, right?
Right. And I will tell you, my third piece of advice has really come from my time as being a civilian. And it came in many different forms from many different folks, from a pastor to a former president of a charity group to someone who was running our school, public school fundraising. And that is, and trust me on this, everybody who's listening, the more you give without expectation, the more you'll receive.
Yeah.
You have to go all in and look at helping others. I don't care what kind of business or what kind of club or organization, whatever you're doing, give without expectation of return.
Yeah.
And you will see a universe that will work in your favor. You will become lucky.
Yeah, that's a great way to wrap it up, Alden. I think that's great advice. Yeah, that's one to live by, I think. Where can people find the book and more about you?
Unstoppable Teams is for sale at lots of independent bookstores, Barnes and Noble, Amazon, and you can also see me at alden-mills.com.
We'll put that link on the post. Great. So people can find it easily, and they can learn more about your speaking, because you do go to conferences and events, and I'm sure you wouldn't mind entertaining. I like your style of speaking, because you tailor your talk. You don't give the same talk twice.
That's correct. No, it's to the audience, and I think they need to hear some stories to connect these thoughts, right? It's not do this, don't do that.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, and I hope that the book sales go well, and that the message is well received, because I think it's certainly an important one, and one as all of us who are leaders and business leaders certainly could learn a lot from what you put on paper here. And this is Power Lunch Live. Thank you for joining us today. You can find out the upcoming schedule on powerlunch.live, the website. This week, I've got the one and only Bob Berg tomorrow afternoon. If you've never seen Bob speak or seen an interview, you've got to check Bob out. He's sold over 1 million books, and he's an expert in sales and marketing. I've got Susie Burke and Eugene Frazier also on the program this week, so make sure you tune in on Thursday for that. And if you want us to come to a conference or a trade show or an event to broadcast live and interview people on the show, please reach out through the website. This has been Power Lunch Live, and thank you for joining us.
Rhett, thank you.
Thanks, Alden.